Marhaban! This series of 5 videos is the 4th series in a whole set of videos explaining the basics of how to speak, read, and write Al-Fusha or Modern Standard Arabic. These 5 videos will explore what we call the idafa in Arabic. This is how we link nouns together in relationships of possession. It's easy to use, but it works backwards from English, so it takes some getting used to. This final video will show how to break up idafas and link them back together in order to speak or write with greater clarity. So when we use adjectives, definite adjectives that is, with idafas, sometimes we end up with grammatically ambiguous results where we're not really sure which noun the adjective modifies. It's usually much clearer to native speakers than it is to us as new learners. So if we want to be more specific about which noun the adjective modifies, we can break up the idafa and then use the preposition le to link it back together. So le has a lot of glosses. It could mean in order to. It can mean for, like for a reason. It can even mean to have with personal relationships. And it can mean belonging to, which is what it's meaning in this case. So with prepositions in Arabic, you just kind of have to get used to what they refer to and not try to translate them one-to-one into English. Notice also that le, like the other preposition be, links directly to the next word. It's not a separate word all on its own. So this will produce a little spelling change here and there. So we know from the last video that when we have a definite adjective after an idafa, it remains a phrase because the words in the idafa are also all definite. By default, the adjective modifies the final word in the idafa. So, imtihan ustadikum al-jadid. Imtihan, or exam, is masculine singular and also definite because it belongs to this word. Ustadikum, also masculine singular and definite bisabab ad-damir, it's y'all's professor. And then al-jadid, masculine singular and definite bisabab alif lam. So the default here is that it's y'all's professor who is new and not the exam. However, many native speakers will say this, and they'll mean that it's the exam that's new. And they figure you'll get it from context, or from tone, or from vibe, or whatever you want to say here. However, for us as new learners, well, you as new learners, it's often a little bit unclear. So is this y'all's new professor's exam, or y'all's professor's new exam? And here, it's grammatically ambiguous. Here, it's less so because of the gender difference. So natija is result, and it's feminine, and singular and definite because it's owned by al-ikhtibar, the quiz or experiment, which is masculine, singular, and definite. And then here the adjective qasir, short, is masculine, singular, and definite. So we know for sure it modifies al-ikhtibar and not natija. So we get the result of the short quiz here. But you're not always going to get so lucky. A lot of times it's going to be more like this here, where it's grammatically ambiguous. So let's take a look at this. So it's often clear what the adjective is supposed to modify due to gender, number, other attributes, but especially with native speakers, not so much. So take a look at this here. Beit ustadina al-jadid, house, our professor, new. By default, it's the professor who's new. It's our new professor's house. However, all these words are masculine, singular, and definite, so in theory it could be modifying this one, and for native speakers it often will be. So is it our new professor's house or our professor's new house? Therein lies the question. Same thing here, only they're all feminine. Sadiqat zamilatiha al-latifa, the friend, her classmate, the nice. So is it her nice classmate's friend, which is the default, or her classmate's nice friend? We don't really know, so we might have to ask a follow-up or get some more information or just kind of roll with it. So what we can do is to break apart the idafa, make the first word into a definite noun adjective phrase by sticking the adjective in there, and then link them to the next word with the preposition le. So we could say al-beit al-jadid, now it's the new house, and now what we did to ustadina is we made it le ustadina. So the preposition le attaches, and that turns the alif bihamza that begins our professor into the lem alif character with the hamza atop it. That's how it works. That's real. And then we just link it back this way. So we could say the new house of or belonging to our professor. So just because this turned into the lem alif doesn't mean it's no or not, which is what la usually means. Nope, this is just how the spelling works. So at first this will bug you because it's weird, but then you'll realize it's a really good visual cue that something else is going on here, and you can explore a little further. We could do the same thing over here. We could say as-sadiqa al-latifa. Now it's a definite noun adjective phrase. And notice that here, sadiqa, and here, bait, they're both definite because they're part of the idafa. But now they aren't anymore. Now they're a noun adjective phrase. So most of the time we're going to end up adding alif lem to both of them this way. So over here we have the nice friend of zamilatiha, her classmate. So just attaches to the next word like this. And this is a cue that something's going on here. It's like hearing the ta and ta marbuta up here in sadiqat zamilataha. Or hearing the z in English for like the classmate's friend. Sometimes it's an S, not a z. So now we know for sure that we're saying the new house of our professor or our professor's new house, and the nice friend of her classmate or her classmate's nice friend. So we've broken apart the idafa, we've stuck the adjective in the middle, turning that into a definite noun adjective phrase, and then we use the preposition le to relink the idafa, or relink the nouns into a relationship of possession. If the next noun, the one we're adding le to, begins with alif lem, then the le replaces the alif in the alif lem. So here we have taqdim al-ustadh al-muthir. Presentation, professor, interesting. Which one's interesting here, the professor or the presentation? We default to it being the professor, but we really don't know for sure. So what we could do to make it more clear is to turn this into a noun adjective phrase. At-taqdim al-muthir, the interesting presentation. And now we've taken al-ustadh and turned it into lil-ustadh by taking off the alif and the alif lam here and replacing it with the le for belonging to. So this is also a little visually confusing at first, but you will quickly understand this is very useful and a cue that a relationship of possession is happening here. So is it the interesting professor's presentation, which is what it defaults to? We're not really sure, hence the question mark. However, if we break it apart and relink it and turn it into the interesting presentation of the professor, too many words with P's there, now it becomes the professor's interesting presentation. So break it apart, turn it into a noun adjective phrase, almost always a definite noun adjective phrase, and then link it back together with le. So we could say, for example, here they're all feminine, these two, because they are non-human plural, lessons, classes, and then boring, which has ta marbulta, making it feminine singular. So which one's boring here? Is it the lessons or the classes? The default is that it's the classes, but we don't really know for sure. Again, hence the question mark. The boring classes lessons. Over here, we could break it apart, ad-durus al-mumilla, the boring lessons, and then link it back together with the preposition li, lis-sufuf, of the classes. So now it becomes the classes' boring lessons. Notice that about half the letters in the alphabet swallow up the lem in alif lem, and this is really common. We don't say al-sufuf like we wrote here, because it's just a tiny bit easier. You have to move your mouth just a little bit less to say as-sufuf instead of al-sufuf. Try it a couple times and you see you're saving like 1 microcalorie of energy by doing that, and that's how people speak. So the le for belonging to stays pronounced here, but the other lem stays swallowed up by the sod. So you're going to pronounce this not lil sufuf like it's written, but rather lis sufuf. And this is something that you will just have to practice a lot to get used to. I would never have you memorize a list of which letters did this. Just kind of get used to how can I make this easier to say, and you'll quickly learn which letters absorb the lem in alif lem. But the le here for belonging to absorbs the alif in the alif lem, giving you two lems in a row, which looks weird, but again will cue you in that something's going on here. And then a lot of times the second lem won't get pronounced, so lis sufuf instead of lil sufuf like it's written. Arabic, you are so delightfully complicated. So you can absolutely do this with 3 and 4 word idafas. Break apart wherever you need to, stick the adjective in, make everything up to and including the adjective definite, and then use lit to knit it back together again. So let me show you an extended example here. So new word in this one, anadila. Anadila is a waitress. If it were a man, a waiter, we'd say nadil. So it comes from the word for to deliver something, so it actually makes sense. It's a deliverer, not delivering us from our sins or temptation, but delivering us French fries, which is far better. So here we have Sayyarat, Sadiqat, Anadila, Al-Jamila. Car, friend, waitress, beautiful. All of them feminine, singular, and definite. These two are definite because they belong to this one. Or really, this one is definite because it belongs to this one. And this one is definite because it belongs to this one. I'm trying to be precise here. So the default is that it's the waitress who's beautiful here, not the friend or the car. However, again, native speakers will often be a lot sloppier and use Jamila to refer to one of the other two nouns in the idafa, and you have to pick it up from context. So if we want to be precise, we can knit them back together with the preposition le. So Sayyarat as-Sadiqa, the car of the friend. Now here's Al-Jamila. So we know it's the friend who's the beautiful one here. Don't knock the waitress, she's doing great, but it's the friend we're talking about here. So then we take the le for belonging to, replace the alif in an-nadila, and get lin-nadila is what we're going to say here. Lin-nadila, even though it looks like lil-nadila. So now we have the car of the beautiful friend of the waitress, or the waitress's beautiful friend's car. So we can break it up in another place. We can say as-sayyara al-jamila, the beautiful car, li sadiqata nadila, of the friend of the waitress. So now these two words are still an idafa right here, just like these two words are still an idafa up here. But once we get to the adjective, that breaks up the idafa, and we have to stitch it back together with li. So li sadiqat an-nadila. So the beautiful car of, or belonging to, the friend of the waitress, or in better English, the waitress's friend's beautiful car. If we want to be really clear, it's the waitress who's beautiful here. We can say Sayyarat as-Sadiqa lin-nadila al-Jamila, the car of the friend belonging to the beautiful waitress. This is not often used, this last one. People will just use the default one, but if they want to be really clear, they'll say this. Or, more likely, they'll say this up here and then pause and be like, you know, it's the Nadila who I'm talking about here, the friend. She's all right and she's a lot of fun, but it's the waitress who's the knockout here. So watch out for that. It can be ambiguous here and there. And then finally, just as a review, remember that le can also be used to mean to have for personal relationships. So I can say lin-nadila sadiqa, belonging to the waitress, a friend, or the waitress has a friend. We remember that there is no verb for to have in Arabic, in modern standard Arabic at least. Before a pronoun, li becomes la for no particularly good reason. So we say laha and not liha. So laha sadiqa, to her or belonging to her a friend, or she has a friend. And then lastly, if we could get this thing to show up, there we go. I could say li sadiqa nadila, belonging to the friend of the waitress, bint saghira, a little girl. So the waitress's friend has a little girl, we would say in English, but there's no has here in Arabic. So when we go to negate it or do something else with it, we have to behave differently than it would be because it's a verb. But verbs are going to be a whole nother topic of the next set of videos. This is the end of this set, so inshallah you have the capability and information to understand well how to do idafas. And with that, I'm going to say